Welcome to 21st Sports Recap and Reaction for the Buffalo Bills at the New England Patriots in their Week 11 matchup played November 23rd, 2015. We're going to go over every possession and we're going to go over the stats and give our breakdown and analysis of this game. And this is one where the refs were clearly trying to make an impact on this game with horrible officiating in favor of the Buffalo Bills, which if it hadn't been for the bad refereeing, the Patriots would have won by a much higher margin of victory. But let's go over all these possessions in this game. Starting off, Buffalo Bills got the ball first. They would go 3 and out on their first possession. New England would take over, drive down the field, and Gostkowski would hit a 35-yard field goal at the midway point in the first quarter with about 7.5 minutes left to play in that quarter, and it was now 3-0 Patriots over the Bills. The Bills would punt after 8 plays on their next possession, and the Patriots would punt after 4 plays on the possession that followed that. So now Buffalo would take over with just seconds left in the first quarter. They brought the first quarter to a close. They started the drive on their 15, and they opened up the second quarter on their own 15, and the Bills drove down the field. They brought the ball to midfield and into New England territory. Their drive would stall on the New England 34, and Dan Carpenter came out to attempt a 52-yard field goal with about 9.5 minutes left before halftime. It was up and it was good, and this game was tied at 3 apiece. So now the Patriots would go 3 and out on their next possession, as Buffalo was playing some good defense. So were the Patriots, as they held the Bills to a 3 and out on the possession that followed. So now the Patriots had the ball back, but after 8 plays, they would punt it back to Buffalo. So now the Bills would take over with less than 4 minutes left in the second quarter. They had the ball on their own 18. And on a 3rd and 4 from the Buffalo 24, Tyrod Taylor hit Chris Hogan for a 31-yard reception that brought the ball into New England territory at the 45. But the Bills would be forced to take a 48-yard field goal attempt from the 30 of the Patriots when their drive stalled on 4th and 6th, but the field goal was no good. So Dan Carpenter misses the field goal with just under a minute left to play in the first half. So now the Patriots would take over after the missed field goal on their own 38. And on 2nd and 10 from the 38, Tom Brady went to Danny Amendola. He picked up 18 yards and was a first down at the Buffalo 44. Brady then went to Brandon LaFell. He picked up 24 yards, and now was a first down on the edge of the red zone at the Buffalo 20. Then on 3rd and 10 from the 20, after 2 incomplete passes, Tom Brady goes to James White, and James White scores on a 20-yard touchdown. Gostkowski added the extra point, and now the Patriots were back in the lead, this time by 7 with the score New England 10, Buffalo 3. So that was the score at halftime. Of course, the Buffalo Bills would get one last play where they would just bring the first half to a close. But now to open up the second half, here's where we had some controversy. Of course, the refs were making bad officiating calls throughout. They weren't calling penalties on Buffalo. They were calling penalties on New England. Yes, there was penalties on both sides, but they were letting a lot of stuff slide on one side, and they were very aggressively calling penalties against the Patriots. But let's look at on this first possession of the second half, after the Patriots had picked up a first down, and it was a 1st and 10 on the New England 31. Tom Brady was rolling out of the pocket, and he threw the ball to Danny Amendola, but the whistle was blown by the referee. Amendola had caught the ball, and he had a lot of open field in front of him. There was one defender downfield. There was also a Patriot downfield as well, but the play was called dead for no reason whatsoever. And so instead of potentially a touchdown or even getting the ball maybe into the red zone, the Patriots would just be awarded 14 yards, and an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty was called against the Bills, as Rex Ryan was freaking out, even though the play had totally gone in his favor. But Belichick kept his cool. He actually was asking the fans to quiet down because the crowd was going crazy. And the Patriots would have to settle for a 54-yard field goal attempt a few plays later from the Buffalo 36, and it was missed. Gostkowski missed the field goal. A long field goal. It was a very windy, cold day, cold night, and it was no good. So the score would remain 10-3 at this point. And now after that really botched possession with the horrible call by the referees to just blow the whistle for no reason whatsoever, now Buffalo would take over on their own 44 after the missed field goal. Tyrod Taylor would bring them into New England territory, and on 2nd and 6 from the 27, LeSean Shady McCoy ripped a 27-yard run for a touchdown, and Dan Carpenter kicked the extra point, and this game was tied at 10 apiece. So now the Patriots have been robbed of points by the bad call, and now the result would be Buffalo putting 7 points on the scoreboard because of getting good field position and because of the bad refereeing. So right there, at the bare minimum, the Patriots were costed 10 points at least, if not 14 points right there that should have been on the board for the Patriots, as in that they should have had at least 7 or 3 from their possession, and then Buffalo shouldn't have gotten that touchdown, and that's another 7 that should have been taken off of their score. But the referees handing the Bills points, taking points away from the Patriots, keeping this game close. It's tied up at 10 apiece at this point. The Patriots would then go 3 and out on their next possession, and then good defense by Buffalo on that. And then there was a lot of 3 and outs on both sides, and Buffalo would go 3 and out on their next possession as well. So now the Patriots would take over with just under 8 minutes still left in the third quarter. They had the ball on their own 36. Brady drove them down the field. They were faced with a 3rd and 7 from the Buffalo 47, and Brady hooked up with Danny Amendola for a 41-yard reception that brought the ball all the way down to the Buffalo 6-yard line. It was 1st and goal, and James White ran it in from 6 yards out for the touchdown. And this is a crazy play where the Patriots had rushed up to the line of scrimmage, and Buffalo was called offsides as they had a defender about 20 yards back almost when they hiked the ball. But they declined the offsides penalty because they had a touchdown. And with that touchdown and the extra point by Gostkowski, it was now 17-10 as the Patriots were back in the lead by a touchdown. So now Buffalo would go 3 and out on their next possession, as the Patriots were playing some excellent defense in this game. Like I said, great defense on both sides. It's really a shame that it was such poor officiating and that the referees really seemed to be in the pocket of the Bills. But the New England Patriots, after holding the Buffalo Bills to a 3 and out, took over on their own 34 with a little less than 5 minutes left in the third quarter. And they would be forced to punt from their own 36 on a 4th and 8. But on the punt, McClendon would fumble the ball, and the Patriots would take over. So the Patriots recovered the fumble. It was forced by King and recovered by Freeney. So now New England would take over after the fumble, and they would end up getting into field goal range, and Stephen Gostkowski hit a 35-yard field goal with less than a minute left in the third, and now the Patriots were up by 10 points with the score New England 20, Buffalo 10. The Bills would be held to a 3 and out on their next possession, and they would have to punt the ball back to the Patriots. So now New England would take over just into the fourth quarter with still about 14 minutes left in the game, and Tom Brady was intercepted on a 1st and 10 from the Buffalo 45 with about 13 and a half minutes on the clock. Stephon Gilmore intercepted the pass and gave the ball back to the Bills. So now the Bills took over, but they would end up punting after 4 plays. And so now the Patriots got the ball back, but they would punt after 4 plays as well. So now Buffalo would take over with about 7.5 minutes still left to play in this game, down by 2 scores. They had the ball on their own 25, and Tyrod Taylor came up pretty clutch on this possession as he was playing some good football down the stretch, and he would lead the Buffalo Bills into the red zone. Especially they had a big play on 2nd and 12 from the Buffalo 43 when he found Chris Hogan for a 42-yard reception that brought the ball to the New England 15, but their drive would stall there. And so now Dan Carpenter would come out to attempt a 33-yard field goal. It was up, it was good, and it was now a 7-point game with the score New England 20, Buffalo 13, as the Bills had made this game once again a 1-possession game with about 3.5 minutes left to play. So now the Patriots would take over after the kickoff, and they had it on their own 25, but they would end up having to punt after 3 plays as they went 3 and out on this possession. And so they punted the ball to the Bills, and the Bills took over with about a minute and a half left to play. And McClendon actually kind of fobbled the catch on that one, but he did not, let the Patriots recover. He ended up securing the ball, and so Buffalo took over on their own 16-yard line. Tyrod Taylor started moving down the field. He hit a 9-yard pass to Woods that brought him to the 25 for a 2nd and 1. Then he ran for a first down, picking up 3 yards, throwing the ball to the 28 for a 1st and 10. Then he ended up getting a pass to Shady, LeSean McCoy for 4 yards. It brought to the 32, 2nd and 6, an incomplete pass that was broken up by Patrick Chung. It made an excellent play on the ball, almost intercepted it. But now it was 3rd and 6 from the 32, less than a minute left to play, another incomplete pass. And so now it was 4th and 6, and he went to Sammie Watkins, and Watkins made an incredible catch. And so with the catch by Watkins, which initially had been called incomplete, but he had gotten his knee down, and so it was a complete pass and a first down at the Buffalo 40, but then an incomplete pass brought up 2nd down. And on 2nd and 10, Tyrod Taylor was sacked by Rob Ninkovich, and the clock kept rolling. The Bills did not have any timeouts. Tyrod Taylor did fumble on the play, but it was recovered by the Bills, and so they would get another chance on 3rd and 18, but with the clock running out, Tyrod Taylor then hit Sammie Watkins. He tried to get out of bounds. He picked up 16 yards, but could not get out of bounds as his buttocks had touched the ground, and so it was ruled that he was down inbounds, and this game came to a close, and the Patriots hold on to win this one 20-13 as the New England Patriots remain undefeated on the season and remain in first place on the year. So the New England Patriots come up big in this game, a game that the referees tried they're desperately trying to hand this one to Buffalo, or the bare minimum try to make it an exciting game to keep the Buffalo Bills, within striking distance, to maybe keep the audience, tuned in. But the Patriots are now 10-0 on the season, 6-0 in Foxborough. The Bills are now 5-5 on the season, 3-2 on the road. And with this, of course, the Patriots still in first place, but they now extend their lead over the Bills and the Jets, who are tied for 2nd place, to 5 games. So the Patriots are in first place, up 5 games on the Bills and the Jets, who are both 5-5. Of course, the Dolphins 4-6 are in the basement in the East, but with just 6 games left to play, the Patriots have all but secured the AFC East. Of course, that's no surprise to anybody. But it was a crazy game. Give credit to Buffalo, their defense. They had a heck of a pass rush. They're really getting after Brady. They even forced him to throw that interception. They were forcing him to make a lot of errant throws, as Brady actually had a low completion percentage, just barely above 50. He was 20 for 39 in this game. Like I said, they were really getting after the quarterback. They were bringing the heat. And the Bills do have an excellent defense. And Tyrod Taylor, they actually were asking him to do quite a bit. And he was playing a pretty decent game. Especially, he was looking pretty good in the 4th quarter. But the Bills couldn't do enough to beat the Patriots in Foxborough, as the Patriots own Buffalo. They own the AFC East. Like I said, Brady 20 for 39 in this game. 277 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. LeGarrette Blount had 16 carries for 56 yards, and Danny Amendola, 9 receptions for 117 yards. Of course, he was robbed of some yards by the referees, but Brandon LaFell, 4 receptions for 66 yards. Rob Gostkowski, 2 receptions for 37 yards. James White had 2 receptions for 32 yards and a touchdown. He also had 2 carries for 14 yards and a touchdown rushing as well. So 2 touchdowns for James White, who ended up on the day with 46 total yards. Tyrod Taylor, T-Mobile, 20 for 36, 233 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. LeSean McCoy, he had 20 carries for 82 yards and a touchdown. Chris Hogan, 6 receptions for 95 yards. And Robert Woods, 4 receptions for 44 yards. McCoy also had 6 catches for 41 yards, which gave him 123 total yards on the game. So Shady was shining in prime time on Monday Night Football, but it wouldn't be enough to overcome the mighty Patriots. And we look at the kicking in this game. Gostkowski 2 for 3 on the field goals. Of course, that one field goal he missed was that 54-yarder after the Patriots had been pretty much screwed over by the referees, put in a position there to fail. But 2 for 2 on the extra points. Dan Carpenter also 2 for 3 on the field goals, 1 for 1 on the extra points. And Carpenter actually made a 52-yard field goal in that win. When we look at the defense in this game, Rob Ninkovich, 1.5 sacks and a forced fumble. Sheard also forced a fumble and easily had a half a sack. And for Buffalo, Lawson had a sack and Gilmore had an interception. And we look at the team stats, 18 first downs for the Patriots, 16 first downs for Buffalo. We look at third down conversions. The Patriots 4 of 14, just 28% converted. So the Bills were doing a pretty good job on defense. Of course, the referees were also giving them a little bit of a hand, but they weren't able to rush the passer for them, and that's what the Bills were doing, and they were doing that very effectively. We look at Buffalo's third down conversions, 3 for 15, just 20%, as the Patriots are also playing some really excellent defense. The Bills were 1 for 1 on fourth down. They were 100%. So then we look at the total net yards, 356 for New England, 319 for Buffalo. Net rushing yards, 94 for the Bills, 85 for the Patriots. And through the air, net passing, 271 for the Patriots. Brady was sacked once, losing 6 yards. 225 netted for the Bills, as Tyrod Taylor was sacked twice, losing 8 yards. When we look at the penalties in this game, both teams were penalized 5 times. 5 penalties against the Patriots for 61 penalty yards. 5 penalties against the Bills for 44 penalty yards. The Bills fumbled the ball 4 times in this game, but they only lost 1 fumble out of those 4. The Patriots also had 1 fumble, but they did not lose it. They were able to recover. When we look at the red zone, the Patriots 1 for 3, just 33% in the red zone, and the Bills were 0 for 1. They did not score a red zone touchdown. They only made 1 trip to the red zone, as this was quite the defensive battle on both sides of the, from both teams. But the time of possession, 32 minutes, 55 seconds for the Bills, 27 minutes and 5 seconds for the Patriots. So it was a tight game. So it was poor officiating, which was a shame with the efforts that these two teams put forth, especially on the defensive sides of the ball. Both teams were playing very excellent defense and really getting after the quarterback on both sides, had excellent pass rushes. They were really putting the pressure on Brady and Taylor respectively. And Tyrod Taylor continues to impress in this season. Yes, the Bills are just 5-5, but they've got a lot of talent and they've got a lot of promise going forward. They still have a shot at the wild card. Obviously, they're right there in a 4-way tie for the wild card in the AFC. And the Patriots, of course, one of just 2 teams that are undefeated on the season. They're the only team in the AFC that's undefeated at 10-0, as they have the number 1 seed in the AFC. Of course, the Panthers are undefeated in the NFC, as the only other undefeated team in the NFL in 2015 as of week 11. So the Patriots are well on their way to the playoffs, as that is definitely their destination. Just 6 games left. And the Bills, of course, they get the loss, but despite the refereeing, but just looking at the effort that they put forth, it was a very strong effort. And although they got swept by the Patriots in their season series, they now are 0-2 in 2015 against New England, as the Patriots had beat them earlier in the year in Buffalo. But to go into New England and to play such a tight game, and to play the defense that they were playing, the way that they were playing, and the way they were getting after Brady, Brady almost 300 yards, but they were really getting the pressure on him. And of course, part of that is the offensive line, and of course the Patriots are also banged up, as Brady does not have Edelman, his favorite target, and also all the injuries in the backfield for the Patriots. But still, a really good effort by the Bills. Don't get me wrong about the officiating. They can't, control what the referees do. It was just something that I personally noticed that it was very obvious on that call there where they whistled the play dead. That was like the worst, aggression of it. But throughout the game, I thought that there were calls that could have been, made against Buffalo that were not being made, and there was calls against the Patriots that they were calling. although, as you see, both teams were penalized 5 times each, so it was actually split right down the middle in terms of how many penalties, although the Patriots had more penalty yards against them. But still, it was a really good game. Came down to the wire. And these two teams, when they face off, I mean, these are AFC East rivals that always play a good game, an entertaining game. It's always a fun one to watch when these two teams get together. And you add in the mix, the fact that Rex Ryan is the head coach, and that Rex Ryan-Bill Belichick rivalry that goes back to Rex Ryan's days in New York as the Jets head coach. It just adds that much more entertainment and excitement to the game. And interestingly enough, Brady actually audibled at one point Rex Ryan. He yelled out Rex Ryan. Everybody was going crazy in the past when the Omaha audible by Peyton Manning. Well, Brady, he actually ended up calling an audible Rex Ryan, which apparently switched to run from the left to the right, and you get it, Rex Ryan, right, both start with R. So it was funny when he yelled that out. I was like, he just said Rex Ryan. But yeah, that was a pretty funny moment there. But it was an entertaining game overall. And in the end, the referees did not decide it. That's the thing. They kept the game closer than it might have been otherwise. But you saw how the Patriots kept their cool and did not get upset when the referees were making bad calls. Whereas Rex Ryan was kind of losing his cool, as he kind of tends to do. But the Patriots, they don't let the referees decide their games. Of course, I'm sure Odell Beckham Jr. would argue otherwise, and maybe that's why the referees were calling everything against the Patriots, it seemed. At least that's what it seemed to me. Let me know what you think, though, in the comments section below, if you agree or disagree, if you think I'm totally off base here, if you think that if you actually thought the refs did a good job, well, hey, go ahead and tell me in the comment section below. That is your opinion, and I fully respect your opinion. And thank you very much for listening. It is greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a good day and had a great weekend, and have a great week, and have a happy Thanksgiving. We got 3 games coming up in just 3 short days. But thank you very much again for listening. It is greatly appreciated. And enjoy all the sports.